Hare Krishna and welcome to the Bhagavad-gita lecture, Bhagavad-gita course. We are almost finishing chapter 6 and today we are finishing, we're going to go through chapter 6, verse number 45 and 46. But first, before we chant Hare Krishna, we chant an auspicious mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I will share the screen so that you can follow. So we go to 45 here. So the Sanskrit sounds like this. Prayatna yatamanasto yogi sangshodha kilbishaha aneka janma sangsidhas tato jati parangatim. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. So Lord Krishna is continuing to answer Arjuna's questions about what will happen to the yogi who is in this life is not reaching perfection. All right, and then he says, and when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So if you have been hearing the previous lectures, so Krishna has been saying that first they go to the heavenly planets and they enjoy there, and then they come back to earth, and then they take birth in different types of family, depending on if how far they came in their yoga practice. So if they didn't go so far, so then they take birth in some aristocratic merchant family. If they advanced more, so then they take birth in a Brahmana family, and if they advance even more, they take birth in the family of transcendentalists who have like long heritage of transcendental knowledge and devotion to the Supreme Lord. So then Krishna is also saying that, it doesn't stop after one lifetime. He's very merciful. He gives them so many opportunities and so many facilities so that they can continue in their spiritual path life after life until they reach the perfection. So that's why he's saying here, when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, so it means now he has taken birth again, and now again he tries to make further progress, and then that will also wash away all the contaminations. Contaminations here means that the eternal spirit soul, when he comes in contact with the mode of passion in the material world, his love for God turns into lust, which is actually the eternal enemy of the spiritual self-realization. So lust is that which is distracting us from the spiritual path, and it's also something which is making us very selfish and self-centered. So it is the eternal enemy, and also that the pure soul comes under the coverings of the mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness. So these coverings have to be washed away, and the pure soul gets covered by the false ego. That also has to be fade away at a certain point. So there are many types of contaminations, and then ultimately Krishna says, achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. And then Prabhupada is explaining this purport. A person born in a particularly righteous, or aristocratic, or sacred family becomes conscious of his favorable condition for executing yoga practice. With determination, therefore, he begins his unfinished task, and thus he completely cleanses himself of all the material contaminations. When he is finished, free from all contaminations, he attains the supreme perfection, Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is the perfect stage of being freed of all contaminations. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad-gita 7.28. Jeshasam tvantagatang papang jananang punyakarmanam te dvandva moha nirmukta bhajante mang dridhavrataha. Translation. After many, many births of executing pious activities, when one is completely free from all contaminations and from all illusory dualities, one becomes engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So let's read text 46 as well. And the yoga, the verse in Sanskrit goes like this. Tapasvibhyo dikho yogi, jnanibhyo matodika, karmibhyas shadiko yogi, tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Translation and purport. A yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances, be a yogi. Purport. When we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the supreme absolute truth. Such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of the particular method adopted. When the linking process is predominantly in fruitive activities, it is called karma-yoga. When it is predominantly empirical, it is called jnana-yoga. And when it is predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it is called bhakti-yoga. Bhakti-yoga, or Krishna consciousness, is the ultimate perfection of all yogas, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord has confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. Asceticism without self-knowledge is imperfect. Empiric knowledge without surrender to the Supreme Lord is also imperfect. And fruitive work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. Therefore, the most highly praised form of yoga performance mentioned here is bhakti yoga, and this is still more clearly explained in the next verse. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militan Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let's go back then to 645, where Krishna is saying, when the yogi engages himself with sincere endeavor in making further progress, being washed of all contaminations, then ultimately achieving perfection after many, many births of practice, he attains the supreme goal. So as I said before, so the yogi, when he's trying to advance spiritually, so then he is when he first goes and enjoying the heavenly planets, and then he takes birth again when his good karma is over. He has to come back to the earth planet to create new good karma, and then but because he was a yogi, so then he will take birth in the righteous aristocratic family or a sacred family. Can also be the family of a merchant, a rich businessman. And then so then he becomes that is a favorable condition for he's continuing to execute his yoga practice. So I was looking up here in Prabhupada's books what he says, because Prabhupada gives many different definitions for different similar definitions to different words. So regarding yogi, then he says yogi means those who are trying to focus all attention to the supersoul within the heart. That is called the yoga system. So that is one definition of a yogi. Yogi means to reestablish our connection, our lost connection with God. And it can also mean someone who has controlled the senses. Indriya samyama, controlling the senses. That is yoga practice. But yogi also means a devotee. Yogi who are not actually pure devotees should follow in the footsteps of devotees. So it can mean different things. Like, for devotee we call also this is a bhakti-yogi. This is a person who is controlling his senses, but he's practicing yoga. But also these Ashtanga yogis, they always have to be a little bit of bhakti there, otherwise they can't make advancements. So without bhakti, one can actually not advance spiritually. Because with bhakti comes, and bhakti means devotion to the Supreme Lord, or like you're serving with love, you're doing some selfless, unconditional service to the Supreme. So that means bhakti, because bhakti, together with bhakti comes knowledge and detachment. So these two are actually the same thing, knowledge and detachment. It's just like you have a coin and you can argue about the different sides of the coin, but it's still the same coin. So knowledge and detachment is actually the same thing, because without knowledge you can't become detached, and you can't be detached without having knowledge. Like that. So therefore, even the materialistic person, if he doesn't have a devotion, if he doesn't do things with passion, so then he will actually also not achieve any success. So there has to be some full concentration on the goal, and full, you do everything in your power to become good at what you're doing and achieving your goal. You have to be expert, and you have to have the knowledge, and you have to be detached. And so it's just like the opposite sides. Like, someone who is devoted to God also have to have all those things. So it's just like bhakti, which is covered by the mode of passion. So then the goal becomes material. But when the conditioned soul, the conditioning is gone, so then we are actually going to endeavor to reach the Supreme Lord. So that that's how the yogi is doing, and also the materialist is the same principle. It's just that the goal is different, but it is the same principle, that you need to have some passion and devotion in what you're doing. Okay, and then Prabhupada is saying, so he's also saying that let me see here, a person born in, so with determination, he begins his unfinished task, and thus he completely cleanses himself of all material contaminations. So it's not that really we are able to cleanse ourselves, but by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, when he sees that we have that endeavor, so then we are actually, he's just freeing us. Like I said last time, that Krishna is the one who is controlling the material illusion. And material illusion is personified in Durga Devi. She's the powerful goddess with 10 weapons in her hands. And we have zero chance against her. if she wants to keep us under illusion, and which is that contamination we are talking about, she can keep us there forever. But the person who is controlling her is the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. When he tells Maya, now you can let go of this person here, because this person has shown that he's not interested he doesn't have any material desires, and he wants to go back to the spiritual world, and he has passed all your tests like that. So then Maya is going to take away that covering, because Krishna is also explaining about that there is this like invisible kind of curtain which is covering us, so we don't really see the spiritual dimension in which we are. We just see with our material senses, we perceive material sense objects, but we don't really see. But once that Maya's curtain is gone, then all of a sudden we will actually see everything as spiritual. It has been nicely illustrated. It's in this movie called Matrix. So all of a sudden everything disappears, and then this Neo, he's only seeing the zeros and 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. Everything is just some virtual codes which are behind, which are like controlling people's consciousness. So then all of a sudden he's free from that, and then he can bend all, he can like bend the matter. That is taken from the Vedas. That concept is actually taken from there. The filmmakers went actually to speak with Suhotra Swami and asked him about these things. So it comes from, that idea comes from there, from the Vedas. And so in the same way, when we wake up, we will see Krishna everywhere. We will see the super soul everywhere. We will remember that the Lord is everywhere in everybody's heart, and we are dealing with souls, not with material bodies like that. So that consciousness is going to lead to the action of a person who is actually free from material consciousness. So they will be very tolerant. They will not see dualities like, oh, this guy is good, that guy is bad. They will just see, here's a soul, here's an eternal soul who is conditioned by the material nature like that, and who is ultimately controlled by the Lord. And the most elevated devotee, he will actually see everybody serving Krishna. So he doesn't feel that, oh, I need to preach. No, because everybody is serving the Supreme Lord. It's just that they are doing it indirectly through the material energy instead of through the spiritual energy. So this is quite a far out consciousness. Some people try to reach that by cheating themselves. Then they take some drug and they think that they have reached some kind of consciousness which is transcendental. But I mean, it's not a cheap thing to get such a consciousness. So some endeavor has to be there. And like Krishna says here, it can take many lifetimes before one is coming to that consciousness. But once one has that consciousness, you will not lose it. Even if you take birth again, you take up your spiritual life at that moment, you will get it back. And we have seen that many, many times in Krishna consciousness movement. Some people, they never heard about Krishna consciousness. They just join after one day and they move to India and stay there in a holy place, and are very, very elevated in consciousness, very elevated in their knowledge, which one can understand it comes from previous lifetimes. But once that contamination is completely gone, so then one can reach the supreme perfection, which is called Krishna consciousness. So Krishna consciousness is not that, oh, just because, every religion say their religion is the best. But the thing is that The thing is, if we understand every religion, there is actually bhakti in every religion, and that is actually a God consciousness, to be conscious of Him. So we are not talking about, ISKCON being the best, or, Islam or Christianity or whatever being the best. It's not that what we are talking about. We are talking about a spiritual person connecting with the Supreme Lord, and there is only one, and having a consciousness of God. That's what we're talking about. So this is something universal, which is beyond the institutions and beyond, how do you say, isms, like beyond different types of names of different religions, because they are all, like, ultimately, most of them are actually searching for that connection with the Supreme Lord in loving devotional service. So that's why Prabhupada here is saying, when he's finally free from all contamination, he attains the supreme perfection, Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is the name of the Supreme Lord. He has many names. So in this, why we are using this name is because it means the all-attractive one. Because all the souls are always at all time attracted to the Supreme. It's just that they may not know that this is actually the Supreme. They can be attracted to a shining car, but that shininess is actually, if we look a little beyond the shininess, why do I like this shininess of the jewel or the car? It is because it comes from the Supreme Lord, and He's non-different from His qualities. So therefore, we are, as souls, we are reminded about the qualities of the Supreme, and that's why we get very much attracted. Like, some people are attracted to wealth, others are attracted to renunciation, others are attracted to knowledge, some people are attracted to beauty and strength. Some people like to be strong, so they are very much, trying to become, have big muscles and like that. And so all these things, they if you look a little bit more behind, what is there behind, it's because these are the opulences of the Supreme Lord, and He's non-different from His opulences. So it's actually Him which we are attracted to. Oh, the last one is also fame. Some people want to be famous. So like that. So Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada is saying, is the perfect stage of being freed of all contaminations. And it's confirmed in the Bhagavad-gita. It's a similar verse: after many, many births of executing pious activities, when one is completely free from all contamination and free from all illusory dualities, one becomes engaged in transcendental loving service of the Lord. So remember, there is only one Supreme Lord, and everybody are actually always engaged in serving Him, either directly or indirectly. So in the material world, it's indirect service, because we are serving our senses, our material desires. We are running after that, trying to fulfill them. So we are serving. We are serving the senses. We are serving our desires, or we are serving the country, or we are serving the family. We are always serving. And so it means that the soul is a servant. So either we serve God through the material energy or the spiritual energy. But we are always serving Him under all circumstances. But what makes the soul happy and self-realized is actually, or not just happy, but satisfied, is actually when we serve directly. So one can do that in different ways. We can chant Hare Krishna mantra. We hear about Krishna, that is actually service, and we can glorify Him. That's also service. We can remember Him, and so on. We can do some practical service, like cooking and then offering that food, that vegetarian food for Him, and so many other different ways. We can go for pilgrimage as well, and we can hear from the Guru. We can worship the deity of Krishna, and we can preach about Krishna, teach others about Krishna, like that. or organize for him. If we go to work, we work for him. We can give some donation later on, or the knowledge which we have, and in so many ways one can connect. So yoga means to connect. In so many ways we can connect with him. And then Prabhupada is also saying then the illusory dualities are gone, because there are actually no dualities. There is only this absolute. Absolute means when that which seems to be opposite are actually in harmony with each other. So then there is no good and there is no bad. There is only pure goodness left in the consciousness of such a self-realized person. Okay, so do you have any comments which you would like to add? Let's see if we can connect. Prabhu, do you have any comments? Okay, no connection there. So let's then continue with the next verse, which is 646. And so Krishna is saying, a yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. So now we have given you the definition of what a yogi is. And that means a person who is self-controlled. He knows how to control his senses and his mind, especially the mind. And it can also mean a devotee of the Lord. Yogi also means someone who is trying to focus all attention on the super soul in the heart. That's also a yogi. But then what does it mean with ascetic? So Prabhupada is explaining in one lecture to the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1948. So he is explaining that ascetic means somebody who voluntarily suffers all kinds of suffering. So it doesn't mean that, oh, this is someone who likes to, like a masochist or something, someone who likes to suffer just because it gives him enjoyment. It's not that type of perverted person. Prabhupada is explaining that the key word here is titikshasva. So he's saying that it means to be tolerant, somebody who is tolerant. And he speaks about Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur is the Nama Acharya of the Hare Krishna mantra. And he had to go through so many different tests. And then Prabhupada is saying, you know how much tolerant he was. So titikshasva is the qualification of a brahmana. It means tolerance. To be tolerant is the qualification of a brahmana. Like brahmana usually are the teachers. And as we know today that, I mean, I myself, I'm trying to become a teacher, and there's so many things that one has to tolerate, like innumerable things. When the students are not listening to what you want to say, when you see that they are not interested, or there are so many things distracting them in their lives, there's so much ignorance, and you're trying to fight with their own ignorance, and then you have to also understand the system in which you are working under. It's also not a perfect ideal system. Things like that. There are many things to be tolerated. So so samodama titiksha, tolerant, Prabhupada is saying, that's the ascetic. You cannot expect any peaceful life in this material world. So he's just being like realistic now. He's saying this is not possible. Therefore, in all conditions, in order to execute Krishna consciousness, you must be tolerant. Thanks to Tikshasva Bharata, Krishna addressed Arjuna that there will be some material pleasures and some displeasures. So pleasure is also here, displeasure. They do not know. So Krishna advised, thanks to Tikshasva Bharata. Yeah. So that is the ascetic person, the person who is tolerant. So we have been speaking about the yogi, that he is greater than the ascetic. The yogi is greater than the empiricist. So what is an empiricist? And probably explaining empiric philosopher believe in the impersonal feature of the whole spirit without individuality of the living being. So empiricist is like the the jnani who he likes to speculate because he's like a philosopher. He's very intelligent, and he kind of enjoys his own intelligence and his own capacity of his own intelligence, and he's very like independent person. So then he tries to, with the power of his intelligence, try to understand what is going on in the material world, who we are, from where we came, who is God. So they are like all the time speculating like that. And one can speculate oneself up to the point where one comes to the conclusion that God is impersonal. God is a light, but he's not a person. He can't be a person. So because the conditioned intelligence is seeing everything in dualities. So if materialism means variety, so then the conclusion of the material intelligence is that the opposite must be spiritual. So if there is variety, it means that the spiritual must be without variety. If we have a form, it must mean that the spiritual does not have a form. So like that all the time, all the opposites, but it is incomplete knowledge because one has only reached to 1/3 of the God realization. And the first third is actually the impersonal feature of the Lord, which means the light which comes from his transcendental body. But it doesn't mean that he does not have a form. One has come a little bit on the way, but not completely. So then when the empiric philosopher meets a devotee who is, let's say he meets a yogi, and the yogi has realized that God is sitting in everyone's heart. So he is actually more advanced. The yogi is more advanced. He knows God is in my heart and he's in your heart. So then that's the yogi has reached 2/3 of the complete God realization. But the devotee is reaching 3/3. So that's why the devotee's knowledge is more complete than the yogi's. But the yogi's knowledge is more complete than the empiric philosopher. So that's why Lord Krishna here, he's saying a yogi is greater than the ascetic, he's greater than the empiricist, and he's greater than the fruitive worker. So the fruitive worker is a religious person, he's a pious person who is looking for, he's not looking for liberation, he doesn't care about liberation, he's looking for material benefits which he can get from religious activities, to be rich and opulent and enjoy in the heavenly planets. But he's not getting out of this world, he's just trying to become a first-class prisoner. So prisoner in the material world. So, but you're still a prisoner, even if you're first class. So that's why the yogi is greater. And then Krishna is advising Arjuna in all circumstances, be a yogi. And then Prabhupada is saying here that when we speak of yoga, we refer to linking our consciousness with the supreme absolute truth. So that is actually the, how can you say, the essence of what yoga means. So let's say if you try to meditate on a mantra, but your consciousness is somewhere else, so then that's not really yoga. You're not linking your consciousness. So you, through the platform of the mind, you can link the mind with the Supreme Lord through the mantra, and then something something happens there when you feel that connection. So then you feel that ecstasy or the peace and the love and everything, which is actually because you have connected yourself now with the spiritual energy. Through the spiritual energy, you have connected now with the Supreme Lord. So that linking process, linking the consciousness with the Supreme, that is called yoga. Such a process is named differently by various practitioners in terms of the particular method adopted. When the linking process is predominantly in fruitive activities, it is called karma-yoga. So here you have that person who is trying to go to heaven, but let's say he meets somebody who tells him, you know what, it's nice that you're trying to work hard. It's nice that you get the result. But if you now take this result and you offer it to the Supreme Lord, so the karma, means your work, and you link it with the Supreme Lord, now you are going to become a devotee. That's actually to become a devotee. So but the person still has a lot of material desires, but he works hard because he likes the result, but at least he has a result, which is good. So then he can offer that to Krishna, to the Supreme Lord. So he's on the lowest platform because there is not so much development of devotion, knowledge, and detachment. So, but the next step, so the more he becomes advanced, so when it is predominantly empirical, when the linking process is predominantly empirical, it is called jñana-yoga. So now he has become purified from material desires, actually. And now when he has started to develop this spiritual knowledge, which you have here in Bhagavad-gita, it's not only like that you develop it, but you have to realize it through practical application. So then once one has developed, now that when the knowledge is bigger than the material desires, so then it's called jnana-yoga. And when the linking process is predominantly in a devotional relationship with the Supreme Lord, it's called bhakti-yoga. So further purification, it's not only the jnana, which is important, and the karma, but what is more important is the relationship with Supreme Lord. So what turns bhakti into bhakti is that when we work, we do it because we want to please Krishna. So then it is bhakti yoga. The karma-yogi, he works because he likes to please his senses, and then he just connects the result with Krishna. So then, like that. The jnana-yogi, he's doing his spiritual practice because he desires liberation. But when that same person has gone through these different stages, so then one comes to devotion, one understands, or whatever I do, I should do it, not because I want liberation, not because I want some wealth, but because I want to please the Supreme Lord. So then that is called bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga, or another word for it is Krishna consciousness, is the ultimate perfection of all yogas, as will be explained in the next verse. The Lord has confirmed herein the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than bhakti yoga. So if you see here in this verse, then Krishna is not saying that the yogi is better than the devotee. He's not saying that. He's saying the yogi is better than the ascetic, the empiricist, and the fruitive worker. So the Lord has confirmed the superiority of yoga, but he has not mentioned that it is better than bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga is full spiritual knowledge, and therefore nothing can excel it. So what does full spiritual knowledge means? It means the Sambandha Jnana, that that I'm a spirit soul and I'm an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. And that and then the Abhideya means I serve the Supreme Lord favorably without any desire for karma and jnana. And my goal is Krishna Prema, which is prayojana. So you have these the three types of knowledge. Knowledge about the field, about the practice, and about the goal. So when you understand these three and in full, which the Bhagavad-gita is giving, so then that is full spiritual knowledge. That's what's called full spiritual knowledge. But it has to be realized also. It should not just be like a theory. That's why it's very important that we apply the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, because when we apply, that's when we get the realization. And therefore, Prabhupada is saying nothing can excel it. Asceticism without self-knowledge is imperfect. Empiric knowledge without surrender to the Supreme Lord is also imperfect. And fruitive work without Krishna consciousness is a waste of time. Therefore, the most highly praised form of yoga performance mentioned here is bhakti-yoga, and this is still more clearly explained in the next verse. So the next verse, I will just read the verse itself. We will speak about it next time. So Lord Krishna is saying, and of all yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. But as I said, next time we will read the full verse and we will analyze it. And that is actually also the last verse of the 6th chapter. And then 7th chapter we will start, and that is called Knowledge of the Absolute. Okay, so I don't know if there is anything you would like to comment. Otherwise, I think we can stop here. There's a lot of information which has to be digested. It's a little bit, usually I speak for 1 hour, but I think 45 minutes can also be enough. So thank you very much, and all glories to all the devotees, and all glories to Bhagavad-gita, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.